Hello everybody, in today's video I'm going to go over the texture generation feature of Leonardo AI. Now you might think of texture as something like this where different gradients show up on a single 2D image, but this feature, as you might see from this icon, is 3D texture generation. So you need to work with 3D files. And I'm going to show you everything you need to get started for free in this video. By the way, if this is your first time to my channel and you don't have a Leonardo AI account yet, I recommend you to go to my playlist section and go to my playlist called Leonardo AI, where I show you all the steps that are needed to set your account up and deep dives on different kinds of features that it has. Alright, so let's get started. So the first thing I wanted to mention is I'm still working with the free version of Leonardo AI, which gives me 150 credits a day. And the texture generation actually requires a decent number of credits, so that's something you should keep in mind before you try this out. The second thing is we're going to be working with OBJ files. So what exactly is an OBJ file? So basically, just like images have the format JPG and PNG, an OBJ file is a 3D image format. This file has information about 3D coordinates, texture maps, and other things, which allows us to render an image in 3D like this. So you can do generations of a car or a face, but in 3D. And to give you a real-world use case, you can use an OBJ file to print something out using a 3D printer. Some of the generations that we're going to be doing today can be printed out using a 3D printer, and that can be a product you sell or use for your company. So how do you actually create an OBJ file? There's different kinds of 3D modeling softwares which allow you to do that, and you do need a certain amount of expertise for that. And I personally don't even have experience creating OBJ files myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this website called free3d.com, which has a bunch of free OBJ files that you can use. So if you go to this URL, free3d.com/3dmodel/obj, you can get your hands on a bunch of different kinds of OBJ files that you can create for your own generation. Something to note here is that free3d.com has different kinds of 3D models, which is beyond OBJ. I just selected OBJ because Leonardo currently only allows OBJ files up to 20 megabytes. So for instance, if you try something like this Bugatti design, the file is actually way over 20 megabytes. So you might not be able to import it to use for Leonardo. So I recommend using something more simple like this male base mesh, which is under 20 megabytes. And when you get to a design that you like, which is either free or paid, you click on that design and click this download button right here. So here you're going to see there's a bunch of different file formats for you to use. Make sure to select the one which says OBJ. So I'm going to download this one right here, and it's going to download as a zip file. All you do is to open this up, and now you have this OBJ file inside which you can import into Leonardo AI. Alright, now that you have your OBJ file ready to go, now we are ready to get started on some texture generation. So all you do is to log into your Leonardo AI account and click texture generation. This gives you an option on the top to upload a new object. So when you click on this option, you're going to see that it says, please import 3D models on which you want to generate a texture. And it says right here, .obj files only, and a maximum of 20 megabytes. So make sure that your OBJ file is under 20 megabytes. So this one is actually just 36 kilobytes. So I'm going to just click upload new object and select that OBJ file right there. Now when it's uploaded, you should see this whitish looking texture, and this is actually the 3D model. So if you hold your mouse on top and move this around, you're going to see that this 3D model is rendering on your browser. So this is actually this abandoned cottage house which I just uploaded, and this is how it's supposed to look like. So all you do is to name your object. So I'm going to say cottage and click start texturing. So this will open up your 3D object in this texture generation screen, similar to your image generation screen. And now you're going to start adding your prompts. And when you go back, you're going to see that the object that you just uploaded shows up in your asset models. So now that you know how to get an OBJ file and how to upload it, now we're ready to start some 3D texture generation. For today's video, I'm going to use two characters. First, I'm going to get started with this male base mesh, which I got from free3d.com. It's this guy. And in a few minutes, I'm going to do some more texturing using this alien animal. So make sure to stick around till the end of this video. Alright, so I had already uploaded this model before, so I'm just going to go ahead and click this right there. Make sure it gets loaded. And when you click and hold, you're going to see that this is how the model looks like. and you can see it from all directions. So the prompting here is similar to the image generators, but the generation is slightly different. For example, the full generation actually requires 30 tokens. So if you create a prompt and you want to do the generation right away, it's going to cost you 30 tokens. But what if you don't know if you want to spend 30 tokens right away? You can actually use this feature called Generate Preview, where your first generation only does the texture generation on the front face of the object and costs only 5 tokens. So you can keep updating your prompt using 5 tokens at a time till you get to a prompt that you like and then do the full generation. So for this model, I'm going to use this prompt, which is kind of cyberpunkish, and I'm going to paste it right there. I'm going to add some exclusions as well, and I'm going to say no two heads or deformities, and I'm going to place it right there. And now you see both of these buttons are now activated. So you can either generate your preview or generate the full texture. And I recommend generating the preview first on the front half of this model. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that right now. All right, I have my texture generation preview done. And even though it says preview, it seems to have covered most of my model instead of just the front. And after the generation gets done, you're going to see this drop down right in the middle which says material, and if you click on the arrowhead, it's going to show you that you have this preview texture which is related to your prompt, and that is available for you to select anytime you choose. But I don't quite like this texture because it did not come out the way I thought it would, because this is more of a 2D image prompt but does not work quite the same with 3D. So that's something to keep in mind, that even if your prompt looks great on a 2D image, it might not function the way on 3D. So the point I'm trying to make here is your prompt needs to be somewhat more related to the texture, because you're doing texture generation, not image generation. So I'm going to say orange metallic muscular body, and I'm going to do one more preview. And if you want to track the progress of your generation, you can go to your drop down for the material, and you're going to see that the next generation is pending because it's still working on it. And sometimes this can take from 1 to 5 minutes depending on your model, so you do need to be a bit patient here. Alright, my texture is ready to go. So I have this muscular metallic look which is orange in color on my 3D model. Alright, so I hope you're understanding how texture generation is different from image generation, because you can't add details like put a hat on it. You can't really just put objects on your 3D model just like you did for image generation, because this is not image generation, this is texture generation. We're focused on the texture of what we're trying to produce. By the way, every time you do a new generation, whether using preview or using the full texture, it will always show up in this menu, and you can access and try out all the ones that you previously generated and see what it looks like on your model. And also, every time it completes a generation, if you go to this assets section on the right, you can see that you can download all the assets that you use. You can download this orange version of your model and click download OBJ file. Now this will download the updated version of your model as an OBJ file. And if you click download all assets, it's going to download the OBJ file along with the files for this material. So if you switch across your different materials, like this one was the one for the previous generation, you see that it changes, and now you can download a different OBJ file for this first generation. And if you open it up, you're going to see both the OBJ file and the material files are in the same folder. So I just recommend downloading all the assets every time you do a generation. And if you switch across the different materials, you're going to see that the prompt, the seed, and the negative prompt for all of these generations are accessible to you at any time. Alright, now let's do some generations on this alien animal. To get started, I'm going to upload my new object. I'm going to click alien animal. You're going to see that it's 4 megabytes, so that is under 20. Now I have my alien animal in 3D. Let me call it alien and click start texturing. Cool, so I have this scary looking alien animal in 3D. Let me try a couple of different prompts to see how it reacts. To get started, I'm going to do a first texture with fuzzy fur and click generate preview. As you see that it's currently pending. Alright, now we're talking. We have the front side of this alien animal covered in fuzzy fur. If you look pretty closely, the texture actually looks pretty detailed, but it's not complete because this is not a full generation. This is just a preview, and I have this material available to use, but I'm going to improve upon it and say green fuzzy fur with spikes. Click generate preview. Alright, that looks kind of promising. So I have this green fuzzy fur with some spikes. I'm not sure how many spikes it added, but it's definitely green and it's definitely fuzzy. Let me switch back to the previous one to see which one is better. So this one looks like the alien actually landed in the North Pole or something, because he looks like a polar bear. And this one looks like he landed in the Amazon jungles and took over this green fur and became like this forest alien. Now of the two, I actually like the first one more. Now for the third attempt, let me try something different. I'm gonna say crystal glaze and click generate preview. So I've been waiting for over 15 minutes and this is still pending. So I'm gonna let that continue, and I actually saw that I can actually type another prompt and generate another preview. So I assume that there can be concurrent previews happening at the same time. So this will be a good test to see if you can do concurrent previews at the same time. So I'm gonna type bronze statue this time and click generate preview. Alright, so that test failed and I see that I can only do one texture generation at the same time and I can't generate multiple previews. So I think I'm a bit stuck until this completes. So I'm gonna let that finish. Alright, it finally completed, but didn't quite come out the way I expected. I'm not sure what it understood by the word crystal, but I'm not seeing it much different from the original model. And wow, this looks pretty scary. There's like a layer of teeth right there and a ton of spikes. This is definitely not an animal from this planet, but I don't want to get distracted by the design of the character. Let me do one more generation to see if I can generate something different, because I want to try something which is not fur. Alright, something interesting just happened. So you might have noticed that my token count has gone up to 150. That is because I'm recording this half of the video the next day. After I did my third generation with the crystal glaze, I kind of got signed out and it didn't let me log back in until today. And this generation also took at least 20 to 30 minutes. So there might be something going on with my account or with this generation that locked me out. Alright, so let me go back to the video. So I was saying that I wanted to do a fourth generation with something which is a bit more metallic. So I'm going to do my prompt as bronze and generate one more preview. Alright, that actually took me just under 1 minute. And the generation came out pretty cool. If you see this closely, you're going to notice that most of the front has been converted into a bronze statue. The back side is still kind of similar to what it was before. How about I do one more last preview before I do a full texture? So I'm going to change this to shiny bronze statue. Alright, I think my shiny bronze statue texture is ready to go. I think I like this the best among the 5 we tried. Let's look at how far we have come. So we started with this fuzzy fur, then we moved on to this green fuzzy fur with spikes, then we tried this crystal glaze, which didn't quite come out the way I thought it would. Then I tried the bronze statue, which was pretty nice, but I think I like the shiny bronze statue as my favorite. And I'm gonna go ahead and do a full texture generation on this one. So all I do is to go in the bottom right here and click generate full texture. Now as this is pending, it's gonna take over 5 minutes to generate. I wanted to point out how good the zoom out and zoom in feature is. For example, you can zoom out so far that you can't even see the model anymore. And you can zoom in so much that you can see all the way to the inside of the model. So I think that's a really good feature to have if you want to do some fine tuning, and this will make sure your model looks good from all directions and all distances before you do any kind of 3D printing or any kind of other usage of this 3D model. Alright, my full texture of a shiny bronze statue is ready to go. Let's look at it a bit more closely. It has definitely covered all parts of the statue and has not left any parts behind. You see there's a bunch of things that are new that did not show up in the last generation, which was just a preview. For example, there are these formations on the back side of this alien which remind me of sort of a dragon or a Godzilla-like creature, but that might have already been present in the 3D model that I uploaded. You should notice that even though these edges look pretty rough, the actual texture is pretty shiny. So if I move this around, you're going to see how the light reflects off the statue. Of the things that I don't like about the generation is the details around the eyes, and I would like to fine-tune the areas around the eyes to make the face a bit more prevalent. Another thing I don't like is how the front part of the generation is kind of not sharp. You see how there's this section near the nose which is not sharp, and this part of the face is kind of shiny and sharp, but this did not get generated properly. Unless that's not an option to do yet, I would really like to find a way to fine-tune parts of my model, because I feel like any usage of this model will work really well around the biceps here, but it's gonna fail on the face. But I think that's enough testing for today. If I get a request of another video, I might test out the levels of these generation assets. For example, things might change a little bit and get fine-tuned if I change the level of my texture. By the way, if you want to see any of these textures more closely, you can just click on this texture and it's going to open up in a new tab and it's going to show you what kind of textures got generated. But for now, I'm going to download all of my assets, and that's all I have for today. If you got some value from this video, make sure to click the like button and hit subscribe to my channel. I have a lot more videos coming up. Till the next one, thank you so much.